What's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We got another 20B3 rotor FD video for you guys today. In this video, Martin's going to be going through his entire process on building the tubular front bumper for this car. So let's get right to it. You guys remember from the first video, Martin made this tubular front end. And we had told you in that video that it wasn't finished, that we were going to be making another section of it for the intercooler and actually for the bumper of the car. We just got the Chromoly tubing, which I will walk over here and show you guys. We just got these sticks of Chromoly tubing. Martin's got the bumper here, and he's got his, let's get this lighting a little bit better. He's got his tube bender here, and he's going to be building this front end section. Now the kind of cool part about this is that it's going to be removable, this part.
So the first process of making a front bumper, I typically just start measuring what kind of hole and space I get to work with. And as you can see right here, I have a pretty good space right under here. So I'm gonna try to bend main bumper or hoop or whatever you want to call it by measuring it and drawing it on the flat piece of ground, a piece of paper, as a template. And I'm gonna try to bend the tube, Chromoly tube, to match that. Tools are very useful for building roll cages and bumpers and stuff like that. It's just an angle finder. These marks that I made, basically that's going to have a straight section in between those lines. And the center of the bend, basically I want it right here to go around the contour of this bumper. So you place your degree finder there and find out what angle you like to have right here. The bumper, I think it's better. That way when you get into a front end collision or crash, you'll have that metal support right behind this fiberglass bumper. On the OEM vehicle, you would have a pretty thick foam cushion in between the skin of the bumper and the metal frame or fiberglass bumper.
You guys can see from this top-down view, this is the basic drawing that Martin's got for this bumper. See, he's got his degrees angled. So what Martin has decided that he's going to do is to actually just take this off and cut it here with some reinforced tape so he can make that basic shape out of, like a tape and paper, and just be able to try and fit it up inside the bumper. That way he can test that that contour fits properly before he bends it. That way he doesn't waste any Chromoly material. Because as you guys probably know, Chromoly tubing is not cheap. But it's good. It's a little bit lighter than mild steel and a bit stiffer as well. You guys can see there's still a small gap. Martin wants to tuck this tubing up as much as he can to this corner. So he may end up making it just a little bit wider in the middle. You can see that he has 28 written on it right now. He might go ahead and make that 28 and a half, or maybe even 29. So Martin's going to go ahead and try and bend the first piece and do his first attempt at making that contour shape. You guys can see that the tube bender here has this degree wheel for Martin to be able to follow to try and match the angles that he had drawn.
Yeah, but every material has its own unique bend characteristic and has a different amount of spring back. So I typically run a test run. I did this a little while ago to study how much spring back this material has.
So as you guys will always know with metal, even if you bend it, it wants to bend itself back the way it was. So you'll typically have to go a little bit past the angle that you're going for and hope that it springs back the correct amount that you were hoping.
So this is 20 degrees like I wanted. When I do 40 degrees, my center point is about 1.25 inches. Mark my center of the bend.
So like Martin told you guys, that spring back for this specific type of chromoly steel seems to be about 5 degrees of spring back. So typically if you want to get a 40 degree bend, you'll bend it to 45, allow the tension to come back, and it'll come back at 40. I'm going to go ahead and do the second bend, which is that 20 degree bend here on the top.
Look, I start from, anticipate 5 degrees of spring back, so I start from -5 and then I'm going to do 20, which should put you at where you want.
And there you go. We've got basically one side of that contour done. And now Martin can basically see, you know, the contour of the actual tubing versus his original drawing. As you can see, it lines up there. Like he said, he made this a little bit longer on the edge to get it just a little bit farther back. But it looks pretty good. Martin is currently eyeballing it, trying to get this, basically, he's trying to get this on this, you know, planar, you know, with the rest of it, so that when you bend it, you don't have it, you know, twisted, you know, up and down as well. You want it all to be on one plane, only bent in that same direction as the rest of it. So now we're going to do our second 20 degree bend. You guys can watch the spring back live. You see that? And there we go. We've got that main front hoop for the bumper. Of course, we will have to cut off that little back piece.
See how it's not rocking back and forth? That means it's pretty flat. I mean, this floor is not 100% flat, but it's flat enough.
Now we can test the fit in the bumper.
It's a little tight. So I'm gonna probably bend these just a little bit more on the end. About 1 degree or so on both ends.
The middle looks great.
Yeah.
Middle fits nice and tight right up there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be up here a little bit like that.
And like you said, this edge here you can see is like basically touching. So he's gonna bend that bend right there, an extra degree or so, and that should bring this edge a little bit further back, and we should be good to go.
I bent about a degree or so on both sides. Let's see how it fits. So now it tucks in deeper. This is touching, that's touching, this is touching. So pretty much, I really couldn't ask for any better shape. Yeah, like that.
You guys can see that's tucked up real nice. So that means if this car was to get in a front end accident, as soon as that bumper is hit by something, it immediately is hitting this chromoly steel tubing. The best part about this being so tucked up is that if this car ever gets in a front end accident, as soon as something hits that front bumper, it immediately runs into this chromoly steel tubing and the car is protected.
And I chose a 1-inch 16 gauge material. So the whole idea is to have a little bit of a crumble zone. I use much beefier and thicker material on the actual frame that's welded to the car. So basically, if you get in a collision or a car accident or anything, this will kind of bend and crush and take some of the impact rather than bending the actual frame.
And Mike knows that he already spent money having the frame straightened out, so hopefully we can avoid that a second time around. Martin got the front main hoop of that bumper mounted and finished up. You guys can see that it fits really tight up inside that bumper just like we had talked about. Martin is using these little bushings to make the bumper removable. These are actually used a lot on off-road trucks. They use them for suspension bushings and different parts like that. Martin likes to use them for bumpers because they have a little urethane, like a little washer right here and right here. So that makes it, great for taking just a little bit extra cushion and bump, if you ever get in a front end collision. And it also makes it so that whole piece is removable. After that we've got that done, now we're going to make another hoop, basically right there in front, right in this section, for the intercooler to go. And that'll be coming soon. So now with the main bumper hoop done, Martin can start thinking about placing the oil cooler and this little oil filter. Because this car is dry sump, it doesn't have just the standard rotary oil filter. So this is like an adapter. And then basically that's going to be mounted on this side. And then over here, on this side of the car, up inside that hole, we're actually going to have to build a custom oil tank. Because this car is dry sump, it needs a separate tank for all the oil to be stored, and that's all going to be done inside this front section on the other side, basically trying to fill as much of that area and create as much capacity for oil as we can. So if you see here, Martin right now is testing the spacing with the tire, and we have to keep in mind that Mike is actually going to be using slightly wider and bigger tires than these. So these are 255s, and he's bought, and we're waiting for 265 Toyo R888Rs. So those are, they run even a little bit wider than normal. So Martin has to plan for that and give more than enough space here in between the tire and this bar to make sure that the tire can clear without hitting ever and without rubbing. With that main hoop and the two side supports both done now, Martin can move on to making brackets to hold the bumper up. And then, like we told you, there's going to be another hoop that goes around this section that holds the intercooler for the V-mount setup for the intercooling radiator. So one of the other things that Martin did, in addition to mounting the Cetrab oil cooler, is mounting this oil filter adapter. So this car is dry sump, which means it doesn't have an oil pan to collect oil in the engine. So you have to have an external oil tank and then an external oil filter. So this is made by a company called Improved Racing, and we actually quite like this part. Not only is it made in the USA, but it contains a thermostat within this piece, this machined aluminum piece. So basically, if it has cold oil, it will bypass it straight past the oil cooler and right back into the engine without going into the oil cooler. But as soon as the oil warms up and it needs the oil cooler, it will open up the valve and allow the oil to go through the oil cooler and cool down. So it's actually a pretty good design, and it's one of the things that we're pretty happy with on this car. As you guys can see, it kind of is an interesting placement, but there's really not a whole lot of real estate on this car. You know, the FD has a pretty small engine bay actually, and so trying to fit a 3-rotor with a massive turbo and all the things that go along with that, you really start to run out of space to mount things, especially when you go dry sump and you have even more things to fit. So Martin's kind of got an idea laid out for the intercooler. We kind of have to plan the size for the intercooler that we're going to buy, knowing that there has to be an end tank, and then the end tank is going to have this flange. It's a Wiggins clamp, and then this side
intake is going to go here, so we need about 3.5 inch or 3.25 inch clearance, because this is a 3-inch tubing, and it'll have a fitting like this with an end tank and then short pipe to connect, and this will be considered as the hot pipe.
So Martin took the bumper back off, and now he's got to make an actual support that goes from here and runs to support the actual intercooler and sits inside the bumper.
Have this piece right here. So this front frame will be removable, but it'll be solid. It wouldn't have a bushing like a bumper would, right? You understand? And then the bumper will have a third tie point. There's 1, 2, you know, and it'll have another one from here to there.
So this bar is the last piece that Martin has to make for the main, chromoly front end that we're building. Once that's done, we'll be able to actually mount the bumper, which is now over here. So this piece has to be rigid because it has to hold the bumper on the top as well as support the weight of the intercooler, where it's going to be tied into right here in this area. There you go, there is the final bar, and now he's got to make the little end pieces for it, as well as make the little tie downs to the main hoop here, and then of course he's gonna have to make a bracket system for the intercooler core once we actually get the intercooler core here. So Martin's got the front bumper back on. He's got everything fully welded up now. And he's just gonna bolt this back on and I think we're gonna call it. So that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully in the next one, we'll have the intercooler here. We'll be able to make the end tanks for that, and we'll see you guys then.